I remember the sun here in Miami, a constant, blazing presence that used to feel like pure possibility. Every sunrise over the Atlantic, painting the sky in fiery oranges and soft purples, felt like a personal invitation, a promise. My days were a rhythm of research, dive preparations, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I was contributing, even if in a small way, to something vital. My name is Michael, and at 28, I was living my dream, a marine biologist dedicated to the intricate, fragile world beneath the waves, particularly the coral reefs that are the very heart of this ecosystem. Optimistic, trusting to a fault perhaps, I saw beauty everywhere, and a purpose in every small polyp I studied. My office wasn't a cubicle, but the vast, shimmering expanse of the ocean, a laboratory of unparalleled wonder. The first time I met Bianca, it felt like a jolt, a sudden shift in that familiar rhythm. She was a hurricane, all bright lights and captivating energy, utterly unlike anyone I'd ever known. It was at a local charity event for marine conservation, ironically. I was there, quietly discussing some new findings about bleaching resistance with an elderly donor, when she swept in, a dazzling constellation of designer clothes and perfectly sculpted hair, a phone perpetually clutched in one hand, filming everything. She was a social media influencer. She introduced herself, flashing a smile that felt both genuine and carefully practiced. Bianca, with her million followers and her world of curated images, seemed to embody everything I wasn't. Yet, there was an undeniable magnetism. She had this way of making you feel like the most interesting person in the room, even as her eyes darted, scanning for the next angle, the next story. Our connection, or what I mistook for one, began quickly. She found my work fascinating, she'd say, her voice a breathy whisper against the roar of a jet ski in the background of her stories. She even joined me on a few shallow dives, marveling at the vibrant colors, her camera always ready. I remember the thrill of showing her a particularly resilient patch of staghorn coral, explaining its intricate structure, and her snapping a selfie, saying, "This will get so many likes, babe." I laughed it off then, attributing it to her generation, her profession. She was glamorous, exciting, and she seemed genuinely interested in my life. Or at least, in the idea of my life. She called me her eco-warrior, her man of the sea. It was intoxicating, that sudden spotlight on my usually solitary, methodical world. The early red flags were subtle, almost imperceptible against the dazzling backdrop of our new romance. They felt like tiny pinpricks, easily dismissed. She'd often scroll through my research papers, wrinkled her nose slightly. My coral population density reports were so boring, Michael. My painstaking underwater photography of reef health was muddy, unimportant. Why couldn't I take pictures of myself looking heroic, protecting the ocean, instead of just fish? She'd nudge me, half joking, that I should really try to brand myself better, make my work more approachable. My passion, my life's pursuit, was just content waiting to be monetized. It felt like a gentle push, then, to adapt, to lighten up, to join her in her shallow, image-driven world. I try to explain the critical importance of a specific species of algae, and she'd just smile, touch my arm, and say, "You're so cute when you're passionate, but nobody cares about algae, babe. Show them something sparkly." I wanted to bridge the gap, to show her the profound beauty I saw, but it felt like speaking two different languages. My longtime friend, Jeremy, owned a local dive shop, a place that felt like a second home. We'd known each other since we were kids, sharing a mutual obsession with the ocean. He was usually my rock, my sounding board, always ready to lend a boat or an extra tank for my research. But as Bianca became a more constant presence in my life, I started noticing a shift in Jeremy too. It began subtly, with Jeremy joking about my boring research dives being less exciting than influencer content. Then, he started prioritizing Bianca's requests. "She needs the boat for a shoot tomorrow, Michael. Can your coral count wait?" he'd say, a new eagerness in his voice when Bianca was involved. I'd sigh, frustrated, but I'd always defer. I told myself it was just business, that Jeremy was seeing a new opportunity. Bianca, ever the charmer, would lavish him with praise, tag him in her stories, bringing his shop a new kind of attention. He seemed to lap it up, basking in her reflected glow. The first time I saw my donated scientific equipment being used for her content, a cold knot formed in my stomach. I'd spent months fundraising for a new set of high-resolution underwater cameras and specialized lighting arrays, essential for documenting subtle changes in coral coloration, key indicators of stress. I dropped them off at Jeremy's shop for safekeeping, knowing he had secure storage. A few weeks later, I saw them. Not on my research boat, not in preparation for my next dive, but in Bianca's Instagram story. She was posing with them, laughing, saying, "Thanks to my amazing boy Michael for letting me borrow his super expensive toys for my next adventure." The caption read, "New eco-friendly shoot coming soon. So grateful for the best gear." My heart sank. These weren't toys. They were tools, vital for my work. When I gently confronted Jeremy, he just shrugged, a slight flush on his face. She asked, "Man, it's good exposure for the shop, for you." Bianca just fluttered her eyelashes, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't be so dramatic, Michael. It's just for a day. We're practically sharing, right?" And I, ever the trusting fool, believed her, or at least wanted to. I was starting to feel a dull ache behind my eyes, a constant low thrum of anxiety. The pressure mounted, like the increasing depth during a dive, squeezing every part of me. Bianca's public devaluation of my work became relentless, morphing from playful teasing into something sharper, more insidious. We'd be at dinner with her influencer friends, and she'd introduce me as my scientist boyfriend who talks to fish. She'd laugh, and everyone else would laugh too, their eyes sweeping over me with a kind of amused pity. I try to explain the delicate balance of the marine ecosystem, the vital role of coral as a nursery for countless species, the economic impact of reef degradation on fishing and tourism. She would cut me off, her hand resting lightly on my arm, her smile fixed. "He's just so intense, isn't he? Always with the doom and gloom. Can't we just enjoy the beautiful ocean without thinking about all that science?" She'd twist my words, making my genuine concerns sound like neurotic complaints. I started second-guessing everything I said, every fact I knew to be true. Was I really that boring? Was my passion truly just a depressing obsession? My conviction began to erode, replaced by a creeping self-doubt. Jeremy, my oldest friend, had become Bianca's most ardent supporter. He wasn't just prioritizing her requests anymore. He was actively collaborating, almost a co-conspirator. I found out he'd started taking her out to secret dive spots I'd discovered, places I'd been carefully monitoring for signs of recovery, sites that were fragile and needed protection. They were perfect for her exclusive content, he'd explained with an uncomfortable grin. He'd show me photos of Bianca posing among corals I'd dedicated years to protecting, touching them, even for a more immersive shot. My throat would tighten. "Jeremy, she can't be touching the coral. You know that. It stresses them out, damages their polyps." He'd brush it off. "Oh, it's just a light touch. For the gram. She's raising awareness, Michael. It's a good thing." His words felt like a betrayal, a punch to the gut. The world, once so clear and purposeful, started to blur. I felt like I was drowning, not in the refreshing embrace of the ocean, but in a murky soup of superficiality and disloyalty. My own worth, my own reality, began to feel like a constantly shifting mirage. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, questioning if I was the one who was wrong, if I was the one who was just too sensitive, too stuck in my ways. Bianca was a master at making me feel unhinged, like my memories were unreliable, my perceptions flawed. "You're imagining things, Michael." I never said that. "You're just stressed about your fishies," she'd purr, her eyes wide and innocent, as if my own experiences were fiction. I felt trapped, caught between my unwavering passion and the relentless erosion of my spirit. The morning of the live stream felt different, heavy with an oppressive humidity that mirrored the atmosphere in my chest. Bianca had been buzzing with excitement for days, planning this major announcement about her new ecotourism venture. Jeremy, too, had been unusually cagey, avoiding my gaze whenever the topic came up. I was on the boat, ostensibly to supervise and offer scientific insights, but I already felt like a prop, an accessory to her grand performance. The boat, one of Jeremy's best, was decked out with cameras, lights, and banners proclaiming Bianca's Blue Planet Tours. My stomach churned. The stream went live, and Bianca, resplendent in a custom-designed bikini and a wide-brimmed hat, launched into her spiel. She spoke of sustainable tourism and loving the ocean, but her words were hollow, ringing with a superficiality that grated against my soul. Her plan was to take tourists, mostly her followers, to pristine dive sites, including some of the most fragile reef systems I was actively monitoring. She talked about offering interactive experiences, which I knew, from the whispers I'd overheard, included opportunities to collect beautiful souvenirs small pieces of coral, shells. My blood ran cold. This wasn't ecotourism. It was exploitation, masked by a carefully curated veneer of environmental concern. I couldn't stay silent. My throat felt dry, constricted, but I had to try. I stepped forward, into the frame, my voice trembling slightly. Bianca, I began, my voice attempting to cut through her syrupy enthusiasm. I have some serious concerns about this venture. Taking untrained tourists to these delicate areas, encouraging them to collect samples, that's not sustainable. It actively harms the reef. We've spent years trying to rehabilitate these sites, and a venture like this could undo all that work in a matter of weeks. The scientific consensus is clear. These practices are detrimental. The change in her face was instantaneous, like a mask dropping. Her smile faltered. Her eyes narrowed for a split second, a flash of cold fury. Then, she recomposed herself, her smile snapping back into place, brighter, harder than before. She laughed, a high, tinkling sound that grated on my ears. She gently, almost sweetly, pushed me out of the frame, her hand on my chest. "Oh, Michael," she cooed into the camera, her voice dripping with mock affection. "He's just so serious about his little fishies." Her eyes met mine, daring me to protest further. "He's just our resident worrier, everyone. Always so concerned with the smallest details. But don't worry, my beautiful followers, Bianca knows best. We're going to have an amazing, unforgettable, and totally eco-friendly time." My chest tightened, a burning sensation spreading through my lungs. The humiliation was a physical ache, sharp and suffocating. But it wasn't just her dismissal that shattered me. It was what happened next. Jeremy, my friend, my oldest ally in the ocean, stepped forward. He stood beside Bianca, a proud, almost deferential expression on his face. He didn't meet my eyes. Instead, he handed Bianca a pristine, rolled-up scroll of parchment, tied with a ribbon. She unfurled it with a flourish, her smile triumphant. "And now, for a very special announcement from our amazing partner, Jeremy, from Miami Dive Shop." Jeremy then read from the scroll, his voice practiced, devoid of any genuine emotion, echoing Bianca's shallow platitudes. "We, at Miami Dive Shop, are thrilled to announce our official partnership with Bianca's Blue Planet Tours. We share a common vision for the future of marine exploration and education, focusing on immersive, hands-on experiences that connect people directly with the beauty of our oceans. We believe this collaboration will foster a deeper appreciation for marine life and inspire a new generation of ocean lovers." He finished with a flourish, offering Bianca a small, triumphant smile, as if he had just achieved something magnificent. The words hammered into me, each one a nail driven deeper into my heart. My vision blurred, the vibrant blues of the ocean turning into a dull, swirling gray. It wasn't just Bianca's betrayal, it was Jeremy's, my closest friend, endorsing her exploitative venture, using my shared passion to justify his complicity. They shared vision. They spoke of was a grotesque distortion of everything I believed in. The carefully constructed facade of my life crumbled, revealing a gaping, hollow void beneath. The sun, once a symbol of endless promise, now felt like a harsh, unforgiving spotlight, exposing my naivete, my utter foolishness. My scientific concerns, my dedication, my very identity had been reduced to a punchline, a quaint eccentricity, dismissed by the two people I had trusted most. I stood there, paralyzed by the enormity of the betrayal, the hot Miami air suddenly feeling like a suffocating shroud. A strange, metallic taste filled my mouth. It was the taste of truth, bitter and undeniable. I walked off Jeremy's boat without a word, my legs feeling heavy, disconnected from my body. Each step felt like a supreme effort, as if I was walking against a powerful current. The sound of Bianca's cheerful voice, still broadcasting her lies, faded behind me, replaced by the roar of blood in my ears. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The world outside the boat suddenly felt too bright, too loud, too real. The humid air clung to me, a suffocating blanket. I could feel the shame burning in my cheeks, the humiliation prickling my skin like 1,000 tiny needles. Back in my small apartment, overlooking the quieter canals, the carefully constructed walls of my life came crashing down. The phone, still clutched in my hand, felt like a lead weight. I slid to the floor, my back against the cool plaster, and the dam broke. Tears, hot and stinging, streamed down my face, blurring the familiar outlines of my living room. It wasn't just the public humiliation, it was the gut-wrenching realization that I had been so thoroughly, completely duped. All the subtle digs, the dismissals, the gaslighting, the small betrayals, the gradual erosion of my self-worth. It all clicked into place, forming a horrifying tapestry of manipulation. I saw Bianca not as the vibrant, alluring woman I'd fallen for, but as a predator meticulously dismantling my world for her own gain. And Jeremy. Jeremy was her willing accomplice, a person I had believed in, had trusted with my passion and my friendship, who had sold out for a slice of superficial glory. The initial collapse was total. I lay there for hours, the grief a physical weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I felt broken, empty, adrift in a sea of despair. My passion, the very thing that defined me, felt tainted, worthless. What was the point of dedicating my life to something so delicate, so easily trampled, when people I loved could so casually exploit it? The optimism that had always been my anchor had been severed, leaving me to drift in a dark, cold abyss. Days blurred into a single, aching fog. I barely ate, barely slept. The vibrant colors of Miami, the dazzling blues of the ocean, now felt like a cruel mockery. I couldn't even bring myself to look at my research equipment, those cameras and tools that were now forever associated with Bianca's performative posturing. But then, slowly, agonizingly, a tiny spark flickered in the darkness. It was a cold, hard ember of anger. Anger at Bianca for her callous disregard, anger at Jeremy for his spineless betrayal, and anger at myself for being so blind, so stupidly trusting. That anger, raw and potent, became my first lifeline. It fueled a desperate need for justice, for truth. I couldn't undo what they had done to me, but I could stop them from doing it to the reefs I loved. I spent a sleepless night compiling every piece of evidence I had. Screenshots of Bianca's stories with my equipment, records of Jeremy diverting his boats for my research, details of their unethical ecotourism plans. My hands shook as I typed, but my mind was clearer than it had been in months. By sunrise, I had drafted a detailed report, citing specific violations of marine conservation guidelines, and sent it to the relevant environmental agencies and local authorities. It felt like tearing open a wound, but also like cleansing it. This was my first step, a definitive cut. I sent a final, short message to Jeremy, just 2 words, "You're done." And then, I blocked Bianca everywhere. My finger trembled as I hit confirm, but a strange, liberating wave washed over me. The connection, however toxic, was severed. The cords were cut. The void that followed was profound. My life, once so intertwined with Bianca and Jeremy, felt strangely hollowed out. The immediate satisfaction of reporting them was quickly replaced by a deep exhaustion, a profound sense of loss. I felt like a shipwreck, my sails torn, my mast broken, floating aimlessly. The ocean, which had always been my refuge, now felt like a vast, indifferent expanse. I kept seeing Bianca's laughing face, hearing Jeremy's rehearsed words. The sting of betrayal lingered, a phantom ache. But as the days turned into weeks, something subtle began to shift. The silence, initially deafening, started to feel less like an absence and more like a space to breathe, to think. I started taking long, solitary walks along the shore, watching the waves, feeling the sand beneath my bare feet. I avoided the bustling tourist spots, gravitating towards the quieter, wilder stretches of beach where the ocean still felt untamed. My mind, no longer cluttered with Bianca's demands or Jeremy's evasions, slowly began to clear. I remembered why I had come to Miami, why I had dedicated my life to this work. It wasn't for likes, or followers, or superficial praise. It was for the coral, for the fish, for the delicate, intricate beauty of life itself. I started small, returning to my old routines. I pulled out my journals, filled with observations and sketches from years past. I reread scientific papers, feeling the familiar hum of intellectual curiosity rekindle within me. My hands, once hesitant, picked up a pen, then my camera. I went on solo dives, not to document decline, but to simply observe, to remember the pure joy of being submerged in that vibrant, living world. The fear that my passion had been permanently tainted began to recede, replaced by a quiet, fierce resolve. A few months later, still reeling but steadily rebuilding, I saw an advertisement for a grant from a reputable, international marine research institution. It was for a long-term project focused on innovative coral restoration techniques, involving fieldwork in the Caribbean. My initial instinct was to recoil. The thought of engaging with institutions, funding, public presentation felt like a painful echo of my past. But something was different this time. The project aligned perfectly with my deepest convictions, with the kind of painstaking, real science Bianca had so derided. This wasn't about branding or content. It was about genuine impact. I poured all my renewed energy, all my rediscovered focus into that application. I wrote with a clarity and a conviction I hadn't felt in years, drawing on the pain of my past to articulate the critical importance of ethical research and sustainable practices. When the acceptance letter arrived, it felt like a powerful affirmation, a validation not just of my scientific abilities, but of my core values. I was leaving Miami, leaving behind the ghosts of a painful past, but I wasn't running away. I was moving towards something truer, more authentic. My new work, my new path, would involve educating local communities and international visitors about real marine conservation, about the delicate balance that required respect, not exploitation. I found renewed purpose and self-worth, not in spite of what I had endured, but because of it. The pain had refined me, stripping away the naivete and leaving behind a harder, wiser, but ultimately stronger version of myself. Today, I'm immersed in my new research, surrounded by colleagues who share my dedication, who understand the quiet urgency of our work. The Miami sun still shines brightly, but now, when I think of it, I don't see Bianca's performative glow or Jeremy's complicit smile. I see the light refracting through crystal clear water, illuminating a healthy, thriving reef. I see the genuine warmth that fosters life, not the artificial glare that blinds and exploits. The scars are still there, deep and sometimes aching, a reminder of what was lost. But they are also a testament to what was found, an unwavering commitment to my scientific mission, a deeper understanding of trust, and a quiet, profound liberation. I lost a girlfriend and a friend, but I found myself more whole and authentic than I had ever been. And that, I've learned, is a far greater treasure than any fleeting social media fame.